This is the Watchman, giving another clarion call. Now, there's recently been some pretty unreal silver demand news that I've been giving a lot of thought about. I wanted to speak to that and then bring to light some other recent, less reported silver data, because by doing so, it will make the original silver demand news sparkle even more brightly. But firstly, we must discuss what I've long thought to be the most crucial element for silver going forward, and that is India. Now, last year, Brother John F. discovered what was likely the real newsworthy takeaway for silver regarding the new silver fix that you'll remember the banks are putting together. And that was this. There was to be a new weight designation for silver added to the fix. And that weight measurement was something to be called a lakh. L-A-K-H. Now, a lakh represents 100,000. Now, if you've never heard of that term lakh, then don't feel bad. As it turns out, it's almost exclusively a Hindi English term, strictly used in the Indian numbering system. Now, those who constructed the new silver fix back then, extremely powerful people, why would someone obviously very powerful decide then to make an Indian numbering term a standard measurement in the new silver fix? I submit it's because that someone knew that silver's future is India and India's future is silver. Okay, the two cannot be separated. Now, you must understand the thing about Indians. Indians don't just buy silver because it's wealth. They don't just stack for dowries, for gifts, or for tradition's sake, though all those things are true and important. Now, they're very unique people because they also buy silver for religious reasons and purposes. You see, gold and silver are key components of the Indian religious creation story of the world. And thusly, both gold and silver are eternally sacred to them. And trust me, banksters have tried for decades to kill off the notion in India, that the mindset that gold and silver are sacred. But they've utterly failed to do that. So as time passes, it's now becoming crystal clear to any casual observer that Indian demand is the juggernaut in the silver living room. It means more than any other factor in silver's price picture right now and going forward, in my mind. Now, what do I mean? Well, for starters, in 2013, Indian silver demand was a monstrous 6,000 tons, and that was a record that year. But then they followed up by importing over 7,000 tons in 2014. And now, in the first 3 months of 2015, they've already imported another 2,000 tons, or over 63 million ounces of silver. So let's just put this all in perspective. In 90 days, India sucked in more than 5 times as much silver as the U.S. Mint used to make silver eagles during that same time frame. 5 times as much silver as the U.S. Mint. Now, annualized, if India were to keep up that rate of imports, they'd bring in another record, 8,000 tons of silver in 2015. Wait, though, because it gets even wilder than that. For you see, early estimates indicate that India's April silver demand was also higher than average and might well mean that in the first third of the year, India could have imported 3,000 tons of silver. It's nearly 1,000 tons a month. It's nearly 1 million ounces a day. Now, to understand the enormity of what you just heard, let's pause there and focus on the previous underreported factors that I mentioned earlier that will make these Indian figures sparkle. Now, recently, the Silver Institute released their 2014 supply and demand figures, and not many commentators have even mentioned it. But I'd like to go over some of those figures right now, as I think they're vitally important. In 2014, the world set a new silver mining record, producing 877 million ounces of silver. It helped to create an all-time record high production number of 1,061,000,000 ounces. Now, brothers, that headline is what the mainstream media keeps trumpeting, hoping that us stackers will hang up our hats and just give up on this stacking thing and give up on the silver story altogether. But what they didn't mention, though, is that silver's demand last year was 1,066,000,000 ounces, meaning that silver was still in a deficit last year, albeit a smaller one, despite record production. Even with a 50 million ounce jump in production, they still couldn't eke out a surplus. For the third straight year, they had deficits. Brothers, what does that mean? It means we're getting close. We've never been closer to the moment where riggers are powerless to stop the oncoming tide, the forces that will ultimately set silver free.
Watchman, how can you say that? They'll just ramp production again next year and nothing's going to change.
Maybe. But I wouldn't bet the farm on that one. Because of another headline they're hoping that you won't see. And that's this. Reuters, owned by, of course, the Rothschild banking family, the chief silver riggers for centuries, has just predicted that the 12-year streak of silver mine supply increases will end this year. They believe that this year is the first year since 2003 that silver's mine supply will actually decrease instead of increase. In fact, they're predicting mine supply could decrease by a whole 4%. That's nearly 35 million ounces less brought out of the ground this year than last year. And not only that, due to the 4-year downdraft, silver refining continues to plummet to the depths of the earth. Did you know that in the last 4 years, silver refining has dropped nearly 100 million ounces from its peak? Oh, and did I mention something else vitally important in the Silver Institute numbers? 2014 was the first year ever that government sales of silver stockpiles were zero? Literally zero. Now, they've been light for a while. But never zero. Governments at this point either have no silver left to sell whatsoever, or no silver left they literally feel like giving away. So, say Reuters is right. If mining caves by 35 million ounces in 2015, if refining caves by another 10 to 20 million ounces, and if government sales continue to be zero, can someone please tell me what on earth will happen when India imports somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 metric tons of silver this year? India is already buying 1 out of every 3 ounces of silver anywhere. Now, what will happen and where will that silver come from? From exchanges? From ETFs? From nowhere? From Walla Walla, Washington? I mean, think about that. These are the prime reasons why J.P. Morgan continues to stockpile silver, and why I will continue to do so as well. And for those who've been following me since the beginning, you'll remember I wrote a series back at the beginning that defined the look and feel and the soul of what this site, thewealthwatchman.com, would be all about. That series, which was a heck of a lot of fun to write, was called the Silver Noose series. Silver is the unforgiving noose that is tightening every day, and I suspect will soon be causing massive convulsions to the market riggers and their system. I'd like to end by asking just one more question. It's a bit of a thesis of mine that I continue to ask, and that's this. If India is buying this much silver now, when their favorite metal is actually gold? What will happen when the price mania arrives? Gold spikes, and most Indians are priced out of gold forever. How much silver will those 1.2 billion Indian people buy then? This is the Watchman signing out. Stay vigilant and bring the fight to them.